Hello, my name is Dubs Weinblatt. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm the Associate Director of Education and Training of Metro New York for Keshet. I am thrilled to be the host of Keshet's new virtual series, Joy and Resilience, Jewish LGBTQ Leaders on What Sustains Us. As LGBTQ Jewish people, oftentimes, we need to create our own ways of persevering through tough moments. Surviving and thriving in this world has pushed us to create our own store of unique wisdom about resilience, joy, and community. Each week, our team will invite a different Jewish LGBTQ community leader to join us in a thoughtful conversation about what sustains us and keeps us hopeful. With me today is my colleague, Emily Saltzman, who will introduce our guest.
Everybody. Like Dubs mentioned, my name is Emily Saltzman. I use she, her, and hers, and I'm the Associate Director of Education and Training here at Keshet. And we are so thrilled to have Koach with us today, and I have the honor of telling you a little bit more about them. So Koach Baruch Frazier is an audiologist, musician, co-convener of Tzedek Lab, woo-hoo, and a student at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, a collaborative leader rooted in tradition, curiosity, and love. Koach strives to dismantle racism, actualize liberation, and transform lives both sonically and spiritually. Koach lives with his wife, LaJuana, in Philadelphia. So welcome again, Koach. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's so great. And it's such a pleasure to be able to talk to folks all over the country. And so we really appreciate your time. And as Dubs mentioned earlier, our conversation series is called, is about joy and resilience. And so please tell us, what do those words mean to you and how do they intersect?
Well, joy means that I have a well within me that can't be touched by the things outside that could hinder my joy. One of the things that my grandmother, of blessed memory, would always say is, she said, "Baby, don't let nobody steal your joy," which means that I also, with this joy, have responsibility over it. And that I don't want anybody to take it. And so I'm not going to give it up willingly. So joy is just that well, that resource that fills me up no matter what. And it comes from all different places. It can come from just being in nature, being with my partner, being with other people. It could come from singing. Oftentimes it does for me. So that's what joy is to me. And resilience is that ability to reach for that well, to reach deep inside that well whenever I'm experiencing grief, pain, disruption of flow, when things are traumatic and my responses to them are such that make sense because I'm experiencing trauma. So that what the resilience is it allows me to just go back to that well and to dig deeper into it, finding that source of joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, especially that visual of the well. I think it's like really powerful for us to think about like our own individual wells and like what fills our wells up. And I know that image is like in a lot of our like social justice work, a lot of the way that we think about just connection and our individual wells and our community wells.
Absolutely. And we can also think about like, not everybody is like a culture to like a well being the source of water for like a family or a community, and like thinking about like, how does this well replenish itself? And then also who has access to the well? And like, if we think about having our own personal wells, like how are we resourcing that well? What are we doing to like fill it up, even in the times where it seems hard? Because that's what that well was. Like, even when it just like trying to get that little last bit, using the little I don't know why I'm losing my word, but the little crank, I guess, trying to get that bucket in there to get it out, and really digging deep, because sometimes the water was, at a level where you didn't have to go so far down. and sometimes you had to, go further and further down. And sometimes I think when we're at that level, we give up. And just knowing that if I've resourced it, which means I have to be practiced in joy.
Right.
Like this isn't something that I can just like, oh, well, I'm gonna sing this song now, and later on I'll be all right. And it's like, nah, you should probably like practice. Sing that song every day or sing it every week so that you can come back to that source of joy for yourself.
Thank you so much for that. I think the practice that you're sharing is often lost.
Yeah.
That idea of like that that ritual, that being part of it over and over, like that body memory or that emotional memory that we can have going back to it. I think it's so incredibly important.
Have you found within your relationship to Judaism, and that you found, how do I ask this? Like thinking about joy and well and practice and spirituality, have you found any connections between those practices and your Judaism?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to this metaphor. Thank Hashem and Shekhinah for this metaphor today. Yeah, I really feel like this practice of at least twice a day, saying the Shema, right? This notion of when we are at that point in which day is going into night and in which night is going into day, that kind of in between, kind of like trans and non-binary space of self, right? That I have a time where I declare the oneness of all creation, right? And so just thinking about that practice daily, like I do it twice a day. And so when it's hard and when I can't figure out what else to say, I can depend on saying the Shema, right? This other deal of what I've been doing is I've been rapping to fill in every day, kind of coordinated with the Shema. And just like our people have we have such a like a toolbox of spiritual technology that if we like find one, you don't need all of them, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do all of them, but maybe find the one thing. For some people right now, they said counting the Omer is the one thing that like I can count on every day in the midst of all of what's going on right now. So the Omer count, like saying the Shema twice a day or even once a day, like finding that prayer or that song that you can really just you can practice daily something that when you need it, it's already there. You've got it. You don't have to like go find it. You can like, okay, I say the Shema every day. So let me like lean in further into this notion of oneness of like all creation, oneness of God, oneness of self, even like as we consider ourselves to be like multiplicities of like beings and cultures and understandings of the world, but like there's this oneness, this unity, this yichud of all of it. So how can I practice that daily? Yeah, I feel like we have so much we can pull from, and whatever speaks to folks, that's what you should do. But for me right now, it's been rapping to fill in daily. I rap every day, no matter if it's like as the sun is coming up or right before the sun goes down. My Chabad friends told me it's okay as long as the sun is up. And so I've been rapping, and it has been grounding me, particularly in this moment. The noticing of the grounding of rapping to fill in has been beautiful for me.
That's really beautiful.
I'm sort of thinking about, I love what you said about how we have this like toolkit, like we have all of these mechanisms within Jewish tradition and ritual that we can pull from for both this grounding and also reflection, and just kind of moving from that, but also thinking about the intersection of wisdom and resilience from LGBTQ history and LGBTQ elders and LGBTQ Jewish elders. Are there things that come to mind for you that that elders in our community have shared with you?
It's interesting. Somebody asked me very recently who my like queer hero is. And the person who came to mind very quickly, there's so many, but like I think about James Baldwin, who was just just so matter of fact about the truth that he would tell. And I love his consistency of truth telling. And I believe that is just something to hold on to right now. In the midst of all the things that is like so uncertain, truth is eternal. And if we can lean into the consistency of like telling the truth daily, and sometimes it's got to be about ourselves, not about what's happening outside. So if I can be true to myself and say, you know what, Koach, you are enough. You are beautiful. You are like created in the divine image. That is actually consistency of truth telling. And if we can use that individually, perfect. You know, James Baldwin, a blessed memory, was, you know, telling the truth about the world. And we need those folks too. But yeah, I would have to say that the wisdom of James to just keep telling the truth. That is something I'm gonna try my best to be in the lineage of.
Something that you just said reminded me, I watched your Speak Torah to Power video of resilience through the practice of lament. And I have a couple of questions about it, but the first one I'll ask, you talk about first the difference between listening and hearing, which I think is a really, really important distinction that I'd love to hear from you. That's part one, and part two, and I'll remind you if you forget.
Thank you.
And the second is, you mentioned in that video, in that talk, the yearning to listen to our own inner voice. And that, you know, when you were saying earlier, truth is eternal, and like saying to yourself, I am enough, that's like telling us our own truths. And so I just wanted to hear from you, like the difference between, again, listening and hearing, and then also just like this notion of listening to our inner voices and listening to ourselves.
Yeah, I'm an audiologist, as you said before, and so I've really looked at what the difference is between hearing and listening. And so hearing is a function of the ear. Like the sound goes into your ear canal, and you know, your eardrum does work to move the little tiny bones in your middle ear, and then send that sound to the nerve and up to the brain. And it's the brain that actually hears. So it's a very intricate process of getting the sound to your brain. And then it's up to you to internalize and to like really focus on what you're listening to, right? That you could do a whole lot of other things while people are talking. You could be thinking about what's for dinner. You could be wondering why they chose that color to wear today. And also you could be trying to figure out, what are they actually trying to say to me? Is there something deeper that I'm supposed to be understanding from the words that they're saying? Are there like wonderings or questions that I have in response to what they've said? But that's like later on. Just listening to the words, listening to the intonation, listening to also the silence between their words and what information that carries.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to think about, like I know I'm just picking on this thing very interesting about listening and hearing in this moment, but just like thinking about the little bones in your ears. I'm like, oh my gosh, the little bones in our ears. Like there's so many things. So like our bodies are so magical in like what we can process and what is happening in every second of every moment, that our internal process is like making sure that we're taken care of and making sure that, you know, we get what we need and can process certain things. Of course, there are things that can mess that up, but just really thinking about the beautiful delicacy. I always said delicacy before, which is like more like for food, but for the delicateness and the fragility and the gracefulness of these processes.
Yes. Before you ask me the second one, I just realized that my battery's about to die and I want to stay on. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to move really quick too.
Okay, so part two of the question is when we are listening for our inner voices, how do we learn to listen to our inner voices? Because I know a lot of times, at least for me, I'm hearing it, but I don't know that I'm necessarily listening to it. And I'm wondering if that's also something that can be practiced and worked on. And how do we know when our inner voices are talking to us?
Yeah. So I think one of the ways in which we can practice that is to actually get a listening partner or somebody that you could practice this with. And so the idea would be that you would say, you would practice talking and listening with each other. So that person is talking, and then you would be listening. What I encourage people to do is, if they're able to like reduce the visual noise, that would be a better way of starting that interaction. But then also think about listening in a way in which you are you're doing one of these three things. We're doing all of these things. You are listening without judgment. You're listening without correction, and you're listening without interruption. And so that will help you try to become more practiced just in listening, period. Because I think that will help. It's very helpful when we're talking to people, particularly under circumstances where the situation is tough, like we're having disagreement or the conversation is just hard. Learning to listen where you're not doing all of those other things will help you become more present. And so when you're thinking about how am I listening internally, I think the process is very similar, like trying to reduce that other noise, as it were, the noise of the outside, the external that isn't telling the truth about yourself. The noise of just I've started like having white noise or something else going on in the background to kind of like get rid of that internal noise, right? That's happening. But there's also other, just the noise of the busyness of everything that we have to do. And a lot of times people say, return to the breath, because that's sometimes an easier way to kind of center and ground yourself. But for me, it doesn't always work. I need to like add something else. But finding ways to just get rid of that other junk that's going on. And the listening part often is hard because when we are silent, and for me, I've got a lot of anxiety, and so what the silence sometimes triggers other stuff to happen in me. And so being like practice in the silence, just being able to be present to who I am and what's true about me, and try it. I tried it. I'm pointing upstairs. I try it when I'm in my bathroom, and in the morning there's like a list of things I want to like tell myself. And so that's one of those ways in which I can do that kind of internal listening of, okay, what is the truth about me right now? And I look in the mirror, which is also something that I'm trying to be practiced in doing. That's also kind of hard, like, that real kind of truth of like, oh, there you are, and you're okay. It may not feel that way, but you're gonna be all right. So that's part of that internal listening of finding ways to look yourself in the eye, as it were. Sometimes that has to be metaphorical, right? But looking yourself, looking to the true you, so that you have the ability to both kind of see and listen to the true you.
Yeah, that resonates really deeply with me. I know, and especially the tip of listening without judgment, both with practice with your partner and also with yourself. I know for me, before I realized I am a trans person, I was really avoiding those silent moments and sitting alone with myself, because I would start to listen and start to understand things about my truth, and it was hard, and it was full of judgment and feeling really scared. And so it's taken me a long time to learn to sit and to feel without judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are like so critical on ourselves, more so than we are with other people, right?
Definitely.
And so that listening partner might have to be yourself at first.
Yeah. It's like when you start to say the thing, like imagine saying the things out loud to someone else that you say to yourself. It's like, oh gosh,
Right.
so mean.
Oh my gosh,
Why would I say that to someone else? But that
Uh-huh.
it's okay to beat yourself up or have your inner critic, and and we're not, we all have that. We all have a sense of an inner critic, and trying to figure out how to like separate who that inner critic personifies, like what's that like what's that thread, what messages did we learn as kids, like what messages did we learn from society to tell us that we're less than or not enough, and how to figure out that difference between the inner critic and the inner voice.
Yeah, and know when to turn it off, right? Like there's a moment in which we can say, you know what, not today. It's kind of like, when I'm dealing with somebody who has been, not so nice to me, and like, but I have to continue to be in conversation with them, but I can say, not today though. I'm gonna give myself a break, give it a Shabbat, right? Like allow it to rest. And then after Havdalah, get back at it, but like take a moment to allow that inner critic to take a break and give yourself a chance to see and hear the truth.
I love that what you said, like give it a Shabbat, just like this idea that like, you know what, like we need to give it a week, give it a moment for reflection. I like appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah,
for sure.
So another, Emily, is it okay if I ask another question?
Yeah, please.
So I want to ask about, still in the video, that the resilience through the practice of lament. You shared a formula. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would love if you want to share with us the formula of resilience through the practice of lament. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, like, so I don't have all the, I would have to have those points in front of me right now.
I wrote them down and I can tell you them.
Oh, great. But
Okay.
I'll just say, like, before we lay out the points, is that the reason why I point to this as a resilience tool is because it gives us, again, it gives us steps to go through. So that we don't have to make it up. I don't have to. It's like saying the Shema, right? It's already there for us. And I would just when you go through Lamentations, but also you find this in some of the Psalms. This ability to cry out to God or to the universe or whoever is causing this distress, and say, "Look here, I'm in pain," and say out loud what is true. Right? Because sometimes what is true is that you are hurting and that you are in pain, and that you hope that at some point there will be a change in that truth, right? Like there'll be something different on the other side of it. And so I'm grateful that you had these here. So the points are: you start out with addressing either the deity or whoever you want to speak to. Sometimes you got to do this with the governor of your state or the or the president of the United States, right? You got to get clear about who you're addressing, but you want to address them, and you want to express exactly what it is that is true. And if it is that you're in pain, to say it. I think it's Zora Neale Hurston who said that if you don't tell people you are in pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it, right? That you have to name what is true, and sometimes that it's not pretty, but we had to say it, and then we had to think about, maybe there was a time that I wasn't in a situation of distress and pain, after I got on the other side of pain and distress, right? So I was in pain, and then I was like, I can think about the crossing over point, the time in which I was able to be not okay, but I wasn't in pain anymore, right? And then you say, you know, this is what I need. This has caused me distress. This is what I need you to do so I'm not in distress anymore. And again, sometimes this could be other people, sometimes it could be you, right? I need you not to lean in to this untruth about yourself so that I can be on the other side of this, like, not enoughness. I need you to stop listening to them people telling you what ain't true. And then this doesn't always have to be the end point, but oftentimes we can say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this lesson. I'm grateful for this moment in time where I had, even if I'm still in pain, I had a chance to remember of a time when I got over some pain. And maybe that's what's going to get me through, and I'm grateful for that. Or I'm just grateful to the universe that I'm still here. So there's this point of gratitude that can happen at the end, and so, like, yeah, I've gone through workshops with folks where we just, like, we write it all out. We write out each step so that we can determine for ourselves what is our actual lament. Because our people, you know, we're in a long line of people who have lamented over destruction, over exile. Yeah, and we're in some ways on the other side of it, in some ways we're not. But we can at least say in this moment, we're grateful to have that memory and use the technology that our people gave to us to help us in this moment. Yeah, I almost wonder, like, I haven't done it, but, like, what is the COVID lament?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was gonna lead into now, you know, like this, it feels like, I don't know if evolving is the right word, but it's like ever changing for different places in the world, different places in the country, different cities, different communities, that, you know, we are seeing the statistics, we're seeing what's happening, but the impact on us individually and collectively can change in a moment. And so even figuring out, like, what is the lament, like, in this moment versus tomorrow, versus next week or in a few months. Have you been thinking about, like, this for our pandemic, our most, like, in front of our faces right now? Because, sorry, what I'm thinking too is, like, the COVID-19 is, like, really, it's pulling away the veil from all of these other incredible injustices and systemic inequalities that we have in our country and our world. And those things are not new. Those things are old. And so how do we use this somewhat unique time to really hone in on lamenting these historical, ancestral, systemic inequalities and injustices, you know?
Yeah, I encourage us to be doing that. I actually just last week, I've been holding so much grief and pain, just empathically, but also just on my own, just feeling so much grief and loss about people who, like, one step removed from me, who have lost their lives to COVID, to, you know, family members who are working in healthcare right now. And I mean, this is just, like, personally, I'm not even talking about the world outside, right? And just thinking about all of the, you know, ways in which I love being around people, and that's not possible right now. You know, like, I love going to Asfara Queer Atomic Camp. I can't because camp has been canceled. And yeah, just thinking about the ways in which, you know, my wife is a high school science teacher, and the students who are, you know, supposed to be graduate, well, they're going to graduate, but they're not going to have a ceremony. And, like, all the ways, and, like, even these little things that aren't related to life and death, that are still pieces of grief and loss, and how we're holding that. And I have been feeling like a water balloon, just, like, continually just to get bigger and bigger. And I bust wide open on Thursday. There was such a release that happened. It was triggered by something else that was going on in one of my classes. But I was so grateful for this moment to just let it all out. And that I'm encouraging people to do the same. I don't know what it's going to trigger for you. You know, maybe that it'll be a song, maybe it'll be like a word somebody said, but to allow yourself to listen and to kind of almost be on alert for that thing that's going to allow you to release it. It may be sitting down writing lament. It may be just beating on the drum here. It may be like standing outside in nature, just like, I don't know what it'll be for you, but maybe something will trigger this moment of release. And I think it's going to happen for more and more people as people allow themselves to just be in it, because that's the hard part. I was, like all the ways in which I know it's good to like be in my feelings and to allow the grief to kind of just be in me and wash over me. I was resistant, and I just became numb. And I was, it was weird when it was happening, but I was grateful that it did. To be on the other side of the pain that I was feeling, because it felt like so heavy. It was so heavy. And I'm happy to be lighter.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that, and like wishing all of us that same experience as well.
I was watching Never Have I Ever, and I had a scene in that show.
Yeah.
It was my moment. I cracked open and I cried hysterically for hours.
Yeah.
And it was it was the exact release that you're talking about. It came out of nowhere, but I really felt so much better afterwards. And and truly, this is going to sound so cheesy, and I'm sorry, but it almost felt like that release was in a way filling up that well of resilience, of like listening to myself and allowing myself to be in that grief and in that sadness, and then being there and then feeling, okay, I can get through this, and I did it. And the thing that cracked me open was like pain from being in the closet when I was a kid, and like I'm here now. I made it through. And so it was like that was the journey. And it's so sorry that's so cheesy, but it just made so much, it was like the perfect thing.
It's not cheesy at all. It's not cheesy at all, right? Okay, like I was just sitting in a class and they mentioned one word and I was like, pop. And I was like, okay, they talking about something. I don't know what they talking about. I cried all day. It just, again, like you don't know what's going to happen. But allowing it to happen, I think, is the biggest thing. To give yourself the gift of release, because all of us, I believe, and I feel like I can say that authoritatively, like all of us are experiencing some kind of grief or pain or loss right now in some form or fashion, whether it's because somebody near and dear to us is gone. And it doesn't have to be from COVID, right? Like it could be from anything that's going on. For all the people who are in their houses and are not safe. I think about all the queer kids or the queer individuals who are with people that they have to be with because we're quarantined together and they have no release, to know where to go.
Nowhere.
Or the people experiencing, abuse in their homes. Also think about the people who don't have homes and are being like carted around because they can't be in one place and the police take them somewhere. All the ways in which we are experiencing so much loss and so much, pain, and that giving ourselves a chance to just call it out and say, you know what, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is not fair. None of this is fair.
Down.
That's right. It's not fair. And this isn't how we should be living as humans on this earth. And like you said, like it's, the veil has been lifted on so much that has been unfair for a lot of people. But now we're collectively experiencing this unfairness of patriarchy and white supremacy and white the racism, particularly anti-Black racism that is so rampant in our society. And so now we get to look at it square in the face, and we get to decide what are we going to do about it. And you see how people have been resilient, how mutual aid has just like exploded. And while I don't think that's a sustainable model, because our government holds a lot of money and should be helping us, but in the face of not getting that help, how people have come to support each other. And, I've been checking on elders, and, people have been doing that and checking on, the queer folks in our lives that are in places that are not safe. I mean, like, as much as we can do to be reaching for each other and allowing ourselves to be reached for, right? And reach back when it feels right.
Yeah. Well, and sort of like leading into that in many ways, like, what gives you hope? Like, what gives you hope in this moment? And it can be, COVID-19 related, or just generally, like, what gives you hope?
A whole bunch of things give me hope. I've been really leaning into at this moment just all of the music that people have been sharing, both the new stuff and old stuff. Like I've been learning about so many different artists who are out there. Some who don't have any way of really making money right now because of they can't tour and that kind of thing. But just the music, the offerings that have come about have really just art in general. Let me say art in general, but music in particular, because I'm a musician. But all of that has been really feeding me, filling my well, and I've also what also has given me hope is just this coming together that we've seen. We just talked a lot about it, but I've watched people give basically their last to help somebody else, and I've seen this happen, like in smaller sections, but to see it happening so widespread is hopeful. It really is. And I kind of joked, but not joking, that to my wife, I was like, it kind of feels like everybody gets to, for a little bit, feel what it's been like to be Black in America right now. And you can just like add whatever else, right? Like disabled in America, just like being at the margins, for like being like, nobody cares about you and nobody wants to do anything to help you. And in those moments of being able to see the truth about ourselves and say, you know what, it doesn't matter what those people are saying. I know what's true. So I'm going to do what I can to help those that are around me so that we're not all feeling that way. That's been the hope for me, is that when people see how bad it is, that maybe this is the moment in which we say, enough of this. Let us be on the other side of racism, entrenched racism, entrenched like patriarchy, entrenched like ableism and sexism, and all of the ways in which queer, trans, non-binary, and gay and lesbian folk have been just at the margins. Like enough of that already.
Swipe left. Get rid of that.
Right. And to watch people coming together to say, I don't actually care whether or not you're trans or you're a woman or that you're Black and you need help, I'm going to help you. And that to me is hopeful. Thank God. I wish it didn't have to come to this, right?
Oh my gosh.
If we're here, may it be so that that's the move, that it isn't like, oh, we got to get back to when I could just have everything for myself, but that, we're moving towards more of a collective, mutually supportive society. That's hope for me.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
But you mentioned music, and we were hoping that you would maybe share your music with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm trying to think about what to do, what to sing. Um, so I know this is being recorded, so I don't know when people will see this, but currently it's getting close to Shabbat, and we talked about Shabbat earlier and rest, and part of that bringing in of Shabbat is light, and knowing that not only do we have enough light for us. My rabbi back home in St. Louis, Rabbi Susan Talvi, would always say, the beauty of this is that we know that there's enough light for all of us. And that's why we got 2 lights, not just one, right? To remind us that there's enough. There's enough for all of us. And so as we take light in, we know that there's enough to spread around. And so one of the songs that we sing in our house, particularly every Shabbat, but we also host a Black folks Shabbat at our house. And so, let me see if I can get my drum here. And so one of the songs we sing before we light candles is this, it's a spiritual called Let Your Light Shine. And so, in the spirit of letting our own light shine and also bringing in the light of Shabbat, we'll sing. Now, let me know if it's okay to keep my headphones in, because I might have to take them out if you can't hear the drum. All right, here we go. Let your light shine, shine, shine. Let your light shine, shine, shine. There is someone down in the valley trying to get home, trying to get home. There may be one or there may be two. There may be me or it may be you. There is someone down in the valley trying to get home, trying to get home. So let your light shine, shine, shine. Let your light shine, shine, shine. There is someone down in the valley trying to get home, trying to get home. There may be one or there may be two. It may be me or it may be you. There is someone down in the valley trying to get home, trying to get home. So let your light shine, shine, shine. Let your light shine, shine, shine. There is someone down in the valley trying to get home, trying to get home.
Yes. That just
Thank
filled my
you.
whole everything up. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Emily, do you want to take KB into our closing segment?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, this is just, as Doves mentioned earlier, this is just kind of a silly, quick, sort of like quick fire series of questions. So, ready? You ready to...
I think I'm ready.
Okay. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yeah.
Tacos.
Oh, perfect. If you could reboot one TV show from the past or a TV show that has been canceled, what would it be?
Wow. Oh my. That's so hard. Oh, that's so hard. Just because we've been watching it, I think it's like 227 or something like that. That was a fun show.
Great, amazing. If you could choose another profession, what would it be?
I would be a garbage person, like picking up people's trash so they can be clean again. Yeah, I feel like that's a good job.
Nice. And then finally, what's a word that makes you feel empowered?
Oh, transformation. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Yes.
Koach.
Koach, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing with us.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me to be with you.
Yeah, it was really special. And thank you to all of you for watching or listening. And don't forget to check out resources, videos, and information about Keshet at www.keshetonline.org and stay tuned for next week's episode.